Hi there, my name is Anna Nold, and I have done a project on the Orff-Schulwerk pedagogy. So, Orff-Schulwerk is an active learning music model with a goal of student creativity using the process of imitation, exploration, and creation through singing, saying, dancing, and playing. With Orff-Schulwerk, Gunnhild Keetman, emphasizes in his book Elementaria that, quote, the choice and appropriate use of even the simplest material is left to the educational instinct and intellectual range of the person teaching. My interpretation of this is that it's an approach to music education in which the teacher facilitates their own creativity to encourage and support the creative process within their students. Brigitte Warner is another author that I studied in this research project, and she describes Orff as having the essence to awaken and develop musical creativity, which, to a greater or lesser extent, is inherent in everyone. This goes into the point that everybody is born musical. There's musicality within humans as a species. And this mentality is something that Orff-Schulwerk teachers illustrate within their teaching every day. So all students are recognized as being musical, and their music learning experiences are centered upon unleashing their musical creativity. So Orff-Schulwerk allows students to practice literacy skills in finding the poetic quality of texts while connecting to rhythmic concepts and meter. This aspect of the methodology is so beneficial to the younger grade levels in general music classes because it really helps them solidify their reading skills as they are learning to read, especially in the K through 3 building, which is where I teach. As Gunnhild Keetman puts in his Elementaria book, Orff-Schulwerk, or Music for Children, presents a fundamental preliminary study for acquiring knowledge and understanding of music and language. So as students learn to read, they obtain extra skills and practice in their music classes led by Orff-Schulwerk-driven teachers. Not only does this methodology support literacy skills, but it also supports the play in this approach to teaching. The use of play is essential in an elementary classroom. Students should enjoy class to the extent that they feel as if they are simply having fun. This allows opportunity for students to become intrinsically engaged in the lesson. Now, this idea comes from Schlechty's level of engagement. The highest level, or most productive level of engagement within a classroom is when the student associates the task with a result or product that has meaning and value for the student. The student will persist in the face of difficulty and will learn at high and profound levels. So, approaching the student learning objective through the facilitation of a game or play not only encourages participation through intrinsic motivation, but also supports an inclusive social-emotional learning environment to reach all learners. The SEL within my building specifically, and I'm sure I'm not the only case, has been a huge focus, especially in the K through 3 building, because students are relearning how to be in school recently, especially after COVID. So when they were virtual learners for an entire year, which is what my district did, the students kind of forgot how to be social. So coming back to school within these past couple years, they have really had to relearn how to do that. So with the Orff-Schulwerk approach to teaching, it really supports that social emotional learner and the needs that they have. And I really appreciate that and definitely strive to do that as much as I can within my classroom. Because students should feel as if they're not only important in themselves, but important with connecting with others as well, especially at the young ages where they're learning how to develop social skills. The student should feel as if they merely participated in playing in a game in the Orff-Schulwerk classroom, and then eventually could say exactly what the learning objective was centered on, almost being tricked into their learning. So this makes the elementary music classroom in Orff-Schulwerk pedagogy quite fun. The elementary music classroom, or elementary music classrooms in general, are very exploratory spaces, facilitated by Orff-Schulwerk teachers. Not only are students encouraged to reach improvisational goals through singing and composing, but also through movement and dance. So there's creativity to reach all types of students. With K through 3, we have students all over the building, the entire building of students. So I specifically have close to 700 students being a K through 3 building. and everybody has to come to my class. As we get to older levels, grade levels, students start to choose whether or not they do music class, but within the elementary general music classroom, everybody comes. So with this in mind, we need to be able to reach all of them, as they are all very different. So not only are students encouraged to reach their improvisational goals through singing and composing, the movement and dance aspect could reach those kind of students who end up saying, well, I don't think I can sing, or I don't like to sing. Well, let's try something else and do what works for you. As long as they're doing their music learning experiences and making sure that they're reading or meeting those standards as we are supposed to meet. So the Orff-Schulwerk driven classroom is often full of dance and movement and exploration in all levels. Feeling music through dance and creative movement allows students to dive deeper into their understanding of musical concepts through a kinesthetic approach. So not all learners are visual and oral, which is what most teachers approach teaching with. We model something and the students watch us how to do it, and then they know how to do it from that. But through a kinesthetic approach, we ask the students to learn in their own way, like feeling it for themselves first, which is very much an Orff-Schulwerk approach to the pedagogy. So as students are encouraged to feel and demonstrate musical concepts through a movement, they can better grasp the content that they are striving to understand because they can physically conceptualize ideas, specifically ideas such as rhythm notation, tempo, steady beat, and meter. If a student could feel it first, they're more likely to be able to talk about it after, rather than the other way around. Talk about meter is a concept that especially young students don't quite grasp right away. But if they can feel it, then you can reference it, which helps. So, the guiding hand behind the Orff-Schulwerk pedagogy is Carl Orff. So, his life work was centered around creating the Schulwerk, which was the whole music volumes of Orff-Schulwerk that lays out the approach to general music pedagogy. He was born and educated in Munich, Germany, which was very like a cultural center for music at the time. He was very fortunate in his upbringing as the environment encouraged his interest in music and theater. So we talk about how students coming from musical backgrounds within their homes end up being those musical students within our music rooms too. We can tell whether or not a student has been sung to or has had music within their life prior to coming to our classroom, and some students who have not. There's quite a difference in those two realizations within the classroom. But as Carl Orff studied, after years of music study, he began a period of exploration and experimentation with his approaches to music education, and this kind of sparked the idea of Orff-Schulwerk. So, as Bridget Warner suggests in her book, which I have right here, this one I highly recommend, on understanding the Orff-Schulwerk. This is her book. I got a lot of ideas from this one, and I've learned a lot through her writing, along with Gunhild Keetman. I referenced him earlier. This is the Elementaria book that really explains the Orff-Schulwerk methodology in quite detail. So, as Bridget Warner suggests, she says, rhythm as the basic element is inherent in music, dance, and speech, and combines them to unify it all into one language. So, through these studies, Orff realized with Gunhild Keetman, who helped develop the instrumental ensemble, that putting this rhythmic notation idea, rhythm as the basic element, and adding it with dance and speech really turns it into the music pedagogy that he created. So, once he developed the pedagogy with Gunhild Keetman and the help of the dancer Maya Lex, they were kind of at a standstill for a little while. So there was a little bit of a flip in the period of time when Carl Orff started this Schulwerk and started the pedagogies that were based on them, and then there was a wall. So he was also a composer, which he took that time where he found his first compositional success in the Carmina Burana in 1937. And it is said that the piece illustrates his dedication to the expression of text with music and rhythm with dance. After the composition's success, Orff-Schulwerk emerged into its second phase, as Warner describes. She lays out each of these phases as such. The first phase was a time of apprenticeship that laid the ground for Orff's own musical style, and it gave him the experience in teaching and developing the pedagogical concepts of elemental music. She goes on to say about the second phase, as a mature composer, Orff analyzed and crystallized his musical concepts in the 5-volume Music for Children. These volumes develop musical expression in its elemental state, capable of reaching all children without the loss of musical integrity. So, it brings music down to its elemental state so that the young elementary students are capable of understanding and experiencing music. So, without losing the musical integrity though, so we still are reaching concepts that are necessary for their musical learning while bringing it down to their level for them to understand. So, today, the American Orff-Schulwerk Association has a website that offers an abundance of resources and professional development to better understand this teaching methodology. Orff-Schulwerk is also a methodology that offers intensive, 2-week-long classes where you can end up being level certified. I myself am a level 2 certified teacher in Orff-Schulwerk, where Orff level 1 is centered upon the pentatonic scale, is kind of the difference. They're all the same methodology of Orff, but it builds further. Level 2 is branching out of the pentatonic scale and understanding how to use Orff within the different modalities. So with Orff level 1 and level 2, I feel like I have built a lot on what I know about Orff by experiencing those levels. I very much recommend, if you want to know more about Orff, you have to experience it. So the way to really explain it all and to really understand the depth of what Orff-Schulwerk is to honestly just do it yourself and to experience professional development opportunities where you can go to workshops where an Orff teacher explains how they do things, and I'm trying my best here to explain what it is. But with my experience as a level 2 Orff-Schulwerk teacher, this participation in this experience really helped me realize how I was going to teach. I'm only in my 3rd year of teaching, but I experienced level 1 really early. I actually did level 1 in the summer before I student taught, so I was already given this immense toolbox full of ideas to use within my classroom. Then, of course, I had a fabulous student teaching experience with Mrs. Dana Harrow from Talmadge, and she was also an Orff level certified teacher who built on my experience as well. But if you've never been immersed in the Orff pedagogical approach, I highly recommend it. The sense of community that was found within that course of everybody's just there ready to learn, everybody wants to know what all the things that Orff-Schulwerk is all about. It's a very immersive experience, and I still have contacts from that class today. I've kept all those people's contacts, and we still talk regularly actually. Just touching in and seeing what kind of ideas we could share. That is a really big part of Orff, is sharing ideas and creating your ideas. It's not only creation within your students, it's creation within teachers as well. So, which brings me back to my original point that it's not just the creativity within your students, it's creativity with you and your students that builds the Orff pedagogy as a methodology. So, the lesson plans that I have referenced in my writing are twofold. So the first one I explained is going to be about a first grade lesson, and you picture this. So first graders are entering your classroom. They are 6 years old, and you have about 20 plus of them, and they're walking in, and you instantly ask them to have a seat on the carpet, and you have a book out ready to read. This is a children's book, of course, for them to listen to, and it's all about a little owl, and it's nighttime, and he doesn't quite understand why most animals are sleeping and he is not. So this allows for a cross-curricular opportunity where you talk to your students a little bit about, well, why is the owl up at night? And then they can tell you, as first graders, they're nocturnal. And you have a little bit of a talk about that, and then you move on. So we read this whole book about the little owl's night, and then I close the book. The owl realizes, like, he asks his mom at the end of the book, why does everybody sleep when I'm not sleeping? But then he falls asleep, and Mama answers the question, but little Owlet is sleeping. So, and he doesn't even get to hear the answer, even though he was asking the question the whole time. So then students are like, well, what happened? Why does he not get to know now? I'm like, well, maybe he does know. I'm not sure. When you are sleeping, can you hear music or hear sounds of people talking? Like, what if Mama was singing the answer to Little Owl? And then I start singing a song. Like, Owlet, my owlet is sleeping. Owlet, my owlet is sleeping. And I have a little owlet puppet, which students love as well when you bring out that playful version where you have things of all kinds for them to participate with. And I bring my little owlet out, and it's a puppet, and they absolutely love that. And they start to listen to how the song sounds, and I ask them, can you join my owlet song with me? And we start singing together, and that's how we transition just into the song. Just close the book, talk a little bit, and sing. And the quick transitions with elementary students are essential to their participation and being able to flow nicely through the lesson. So as we're singing our owlet song, there's a couple more lines to it, but we sing the song and they get to start moving into creative movement, which I also transition without them kind of knowing. And I stand up and I float kind of around the room singing the song, and I ask them to join me just with a gesture. So they know, following along, that they should follow me and do what I'm asking them to do because they want to, because we just read this story and now we get to act it out. We're in a forest. So they love this level of play that we can add to each lesson. Then we end up doing a triangle part where I bring out a triangle and I ding, and at this point I've passed the owlet on and I ask a student, and it's a student who's been singing the whole time and who knows the song well, and I will like praise them for their singing and how well they've been doing so far, and I will tell them, thank you so much for singing with me. Will you take care of my owl for me? And I give them the owl puppet and they get to float around with it, which is such a great job. And it also encourages other students who may not have been singing as much yet to start singing more. So when we get out the triangles, I think more about how to find that 4-beat pattern where we're feeling the beat. So the primary SLO, student learning objective of this, is to feel 4 meter. So as they're moving around, we're singing the song, and on each 4th beat, I ding with the triangle. And then I carefully notice who starts following along with that. I ask them to freeze every time I tap the triangle as well. So if they freeze and they start, you can notice when they start to anticipate the freeze because they're feeling the meter. And I will give a triangle to each person or each student who is starting to feel that meter. So then we pass out all the triangles, hopefully because everybody's gotten it, because they gain their triangle by the time that they have felt that 4-beat meter. And then we're lovely owls floating around the music room, dinging on every 4th beat. So we eventually move this to an Orff ensemble part of this song where we add a rhythmic ostinato on the xylophones. And with first graders, I mostly just try to keep that pretty simple. And I'll play it on F, or the do of the piece. And I'll have them eventually kind of add some improvisation pieces too, so we get to the level of creation. So this is not just one lesson. This is over a course of like 3 or 4 by the time we get to the improvisation part, but the point of an Orff-Schulwerk lesson is to get to that level of creation. So it's not just that they have learned the song, they have played the piece on the ensemble work, they feel the meter, It's also, can they use this meter to improvise and create? And I start them out on the xylophones creating their own improvisation things, and I limit that with first graders. Like, I will give them just play on F, which is do, and they will play, hopefully, in a steady rhythm meter to the 4/4 meter, their own kind of improvisation rhythm. So it's not improvising on a melody yet, but with first grade, this works. So once we get to the level of creation, then we start like being able to move on to the next thing. So you don't move on to the next thing until you have reached that level of creation with that piece and with that game or whatever it is that you're playing. There's always a way to like stretch out in Orff-Schulwerk to be able to get students to the level of creation, which is the ultimate goal. So I do have one more lesson. My video is getting a bit lengthy here, but I love Orff-Schulwerk and I could talk about it all day, I think. So the next lesson that I've discussed in my reference here in the midterm, I talked about a second grade lesson. So with my second grade lesson, I am talking about how we approach the half note idea, which is a big concept for second graders in general music. So we start with the game Grizzly Bear, which my kids love, and they play actually in first grade, but we build on that as second graders because it teaches the half note length. But with first grade, we'd use it as dynamics. We learn about dynamics in that song because at the end the bear gets really mad and they get really loud, and we talk about forte. So they remember this game and it's really fun. We actually have a whole class set of tubano drums where we set them up in a cave, and I have those like foam mats that we like lay on top of the drums. We make this big circle. We go all out in building this cave. The kids love it. And that this brings the level of play. So they're engaged, they're participating, they're loving what we're doing. So when we build the cave, and I have a grizzly bear puppet as well, somebody gets to be the grizzly bear, and we play it as like a guessing game kind of. So it's also practicing not only the half note, but it's when I have my second graders practice singing alone. So with this game, the grizzly bear hides in the cave and they sing the song, "Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave." And you have to tell everybody, "Please be very quiet, very, very quiet. If you wake him, if you shake him, he gets very..." And the class screams mad. But we always say we never want to be louder than lovely. So I try to make them not too loud by saying that. And they giggle and they learn that it should not be a scream because we are indoors and we don't scream indoors. But when we get to the mad, there is one part of the song where it says, where we switch to having just one person sing. So it helps support like those people who are singing all by themselves by starting the song as a class. We sing, "Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave," all together. Then for the second time that part repeats, it's one voice, and then that person sings again, "Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave," and they keep going to sing by themselves. "Please be very quiet, very, very quiet." And then the class comes back in at the end. "If you wake him, if you shake him, he gets very mad." And on mad and cave is when they feel the half note idea. So after we play this game and we have that experience where students are singing on their own and with others, which is one of their music standards, we move on to the music room is back into a forest. If you can't tell, we love music class forest creatures in my classroom, so we tend to go back to that theme with my lesson plans. So we're in the forest, and I ask them to move to the steady beat, which I establish also on a tubano drum for them to match their feet to the beat, which is what we often do in my classroom. And as they're moving around to the beat, I ask them, and I'm the grizzly bear, I have the puppet, and I say, "My grizzly bear's claws want to get even bigger at a certain part of the song, and I wonder who can notice it." So they're singing and they're walking around to the beat, but now they're looking for my bear claws, which is where they're noticing where the half note comes out. So I do it on cave and mad, and I ask who noticed where the bear claws fail. And then when somebody always tells me, and then I'm like, well, can you make your bear claws come out in the same place? And all of a sudden they're practicing feeling the growth of the half note length. So we get even more creative with clapping the beat, and then we do the claws, or clapping the rhythm, I'm sorry. So we clap along to the rhythm and then we add the claws. So this is more of the kinesthetic approach to feeling the rhythm idea or the concept before they actually talk about it. So with this one, we're clapping the rhythm. Grizzly bear, a grizzly bear is sleeping in a cave. And we grow that half note idea. So then we have a discussion. We talk about, why do you think we brought those bear claws out in those special parts? And we talk about how we already know ta and tt. So if we already know this and we already know that, what could this be? Something new. And then we explain it, and I ask them whether if it's longer, or some of them will tell me right away that it is a longer feeling, which is good, which is what we want. And then we therefore go further to establish the half note idea. After that feeling and then discussion, then we quickly get to the notation, which we build upon further after that. So with these lesson plans and with this explanation of Orff, I hope you feel like you've had a better understanding of what this methodology can bring to you in your classroom, and I wish you the best of luck in implementing Orff-Schulwerk soon. Thank you very much.